When a German girl gave her blanket to an American child, what could make a German girl give her own blanket to an American child? And why can such a simple act carry a meaning far greater than it first appears? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the powerful stories still to come. Thank you for spending your time with us and for continuing to support this channel. Your presence makes it possible for us to keep sharing stories about humanity, courage, compassion, and the unexpected connections between people. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, would you give something precious to a child from the other side? Now, settle in as we return to a time when even the smallest act of kindness could mean more than words could ever say. Don't touch her. The warning cut across the frozen street before Anna Keller had taken 3 steps. She stopped. Snow drifted between the damaged stone buildings, settling over broken shutters, abandoned carts, and the muddy tracks left by American trucks. Beyond a temporary wire barrier, soldiers moved through the German town with rifles hanging against heavy winter coats. Their voices were clipped. Their eyes rarely rested anywhere for long. Anna knew those eyes. Everyone in town did. At 22, she had already learned that uniforms changed faster than fear did. She stood among the civilians waiting beside the old bakery, a basket tucked against one hip. Around her shoulders was a gray wool blanket, faded from years of washing. One corner had been repaired with darker thread. Anna kept that corner folded beneath her hand. Then she heard a child coughing, not from the German crowd. Across the street, beside an American transport truck, a little girl stood alone. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her coat was too thin for the morning. Her bare fingers were pulled inside her sleeves, and each breath escaped in a pale cloud. Soldiers passed nearby carrying crates and medical supplies. No one seemed to notice her. Anna did. The girl shivered again. Anna's fingers tightened around the blanket. For several seconds, she remained where she was. An older German woman beside her murmured, "Anna." It wasn't a question. Anna lowered her basket. Then she stepped away from the crowd. 1 step. 2. That was when the American private noticed her. "Stay back." Anna understood enough English. She kept walking. The soldier shifted his rifle. "I said stop." People behind Anna went silent. The little girl looked up. Anna could see fear in her face now. Not fear of soldiers or Germans or borders drawn by adults she had never met. Just the frightened confusion of a child who was cold and couldn't find someone. Anna stopped several feet away. Slowly, she lifted both hands. The soldier watched closely. Then Anna reached for the blanket around her shoulders. She removed it. Cold immediately found the thin fabric of her dress. The American frowned. Anna crouched and placed the folded wool on the ground between herself and the child. She didn't approach any farther. The girl stared at it. "For you," Anna said quietly. The child looked toward the soldier. He didn't move. After a moment, she stepped forward, picked up the blanket, and wrapped it around herself. Almost immediately, her shoulders stopped trembling. Anna watched her for only a second. Then she turned away. No explanation. No request for thanks. She picked up her basket and walked back toward the waiting civilians, rubbing her bare hands together against the cold. Across the street, Sergeant James Walker had just emerged from the command building. He had seen the final few seconds. A German woman, an American child, a gray blanket passing between them. Then the little girl turned toward him. James stopped. The papers in his hand slipped slightly. He knew that face. "Emily." The child looked up. "James." His blood went cold. He crossed the street quickly, dropped to one knee, and pulled his younger sister against him. Then his eyes moved to the blanket wrapped around her shoulders. And finally, to Anna Keller walking away through the snow. "Where did you get this?" James Walker's voice was sharper than he intended. Emily flinched beneath the gray wool wrapped around her shoulders. James immediately softened his grip, but his attention remained fixed on the unfamiliar fabric. "The lady gave it to me." "What lady?" Emily pointed toward the civilians. James followed her finger. Anna Keller was nearly at the bakery now, carrying her basket with both hands. Without the wool covering, she seemed smaller than before. Her thin dress offered little protection against the January air, yet she never glanced behind her. James stood. "Stay with Corporal Harris." "But James, Emily." His sister recognized that tone. She nodded. James crossed the road. For months, caution had kept him alive. He had learned not to trust abandoned houses, unattended carts, open windows, or smiles offered too quickly. Innocent things could conceal dangerous intentions. Kindness could be mistaken for safety. And safety was a luxury soldiers stopped believing in. Keller. Anna stopped. She turned slowly. James had learned her surname from the civilian registration list that morning. Up close, he noticed how pale her fingers had become. You gave that blanket to my sister? Yes. Why? Anna glanced toward Emily. She was cold. That's all. Anna looked back at him. What else should there be? The answer irritated him because it carried no fear. James lowered his voice. You approached an American child without permission. I approached a child. She's my sister. I know that now. James studied her face, searching for something beneath the composure. Resentment, calculation, perhaps an attempt to gain favor with the occupying soldiers. He found only exhaustion. Behind them, a truck engine coughed to life. Boots struck frozen pavement. Somewhere inside the bakery, glass shattered and someone cursed. James held out his hand. I'll return it. Anna's expression changed. Barely. No, it belongs to you. It belongs to the girl who needs it. She has other blankets. Anna's eyes moved to Emily again. Then tonight she will have one more. James had no answer ready. Anna turned. Wait. She paused. Why would you help us? This time, silence lasted longer. A gust swept through the street, lifting loose snow around her shoes. Anna rubbed one thumb across her frozen knuckles. I didn't help you, Sergeant. Her English was careful, each word chosen before it left her mouth. I helped her. Then she walked away. James remained in the road. He had expected gratitude, nervousness, perhaps an apology for approaching Emily. Instead, the German girl had spoken as though the uniform meant nothing. When he returned, Emily was sitting on an ammunition crate, almost disappearing inside the oversized wool. She didn't want it back, James said. Emily touched the rough fabric. She was cold too. I noticed. No, Emily shook her head. Before she gave it to me. James looked across the street. Anna had vanished inside the bakery. For reasons he couldn't explain, those 5 words stayed with him. That evening, after Emily had fallen asleep in the temporary quarters, James reached for the blanket. He intended only to fold it. His fingers found a repaired corner. Dark thread. Tiny stitches. Then something beneath the fold caught his eye. Letters had been embroidered into the wool years earlier, almost erased by time. James moved closer to the lamp. M. Keller, 1938. He read it twice. Anna's first name did not begin with M. James stared at the sleeping child beneath the blanket, then at the faded name. And for the first time, he wondered whether Anna Keller had given Emily something she could never replace. Who was M. Keller? Anna's hands stopped above the wooden crate. James had found her behind the bakery the following morning, sorting potatoes beside 2 elderly women. Neither woman understood why an American sergeant had crossed the square carrying a folded gray blanket beneath his arm. Anna understood immediately. Her eyes fell to the embroidered corner. For the first time since James had met her, something broke through her controlled expression. Not fear. Recognition. You opened it. I folded it. Anna returned to the potatoes. James stepped closer. That name isn't yours. No, then whose is it? One of the older women glanced at Anna before quietly carrying her crate inside. The second followed. Within moments, only James and Anna remained beneath the wooden awning. Anna picked up another potato. James waited. War had taught him that silence could be useful. Men often filled it because they couldn't endure what their own thoughts sounded like. Anna was different. She could stand inside silence indefinitely. Finally, James placed the blanket on the crate. My sister slept under this last night. That was why I gave it to her. She asked whether you were warm. Anna almost smiled. Almost. I survived. That wasn't her question. Anna looked at him then. James noticed shadows beneath her eyes. Her hands were reddened from the cold. The skin cracked around her knuckles. He suddenly remembered how quickly he had crossed the street yesterday. How easily suspicion had arrived before gratitude. M. Keller, he repeated. Who is she? Anna folded the repaired corner inward. You ask many questions. It's my job. No. Her gaze remained on the fabric. Your job is to guard the town. That landed harder than James expected. Before he could answer, a voice came from the bakery doorway. Marta. An elderly man stood there holding a flour sack. Anna stiffened. The man looked at James. Marta Keller. Mr. Bauer. Anna's warning was quiet. He ignored it. Her little sister. James turned toward Anna. She lifted the potato crate. That is enough. But another detail had already changed. James had seen civilians protect secrets from soldiers before. This wasn't secrecy. It was pain. Over the next hours, small pieces reached him without his asking. Corporal Harris mentioned seeing Anna divide her bread ration between two children near the church. A medic said she had spent an afternoon translating for an injured old man who refused to enter the American aid station alone. Private Collins complained that the Keller girl had rejected canned food offered specifically to her, then watched her carry the same tins to a widow 3 streets away. None of it fit the picture James had built. That evening, he passed the bakery again. Anna was outside repairing a broken window with scraps of wood. She worked alone. James stopped across the road. He remembered towns his unit had entered before this one. Faces watching from doorways. Houses searched. Friends who had disappeared between one sunrise and the next. It had become easier to reduce everything to categories. American, German, friend, enemy, alive, dead. Categories required no questions. People did. Anna noticed him, but continued hammering. James looked at the blanket beneath his arm. Marta was your sister. The hammer stopped. Yes. Where is she? Anna remained motionless. Then she set the hammer down carefully. Her eyes moved toward the church at the far end of the street. James followed her gaze. Near its damaged wall stood a row of small wooden markers half covered by snow. Anna said nothing more. She didn't need to. And suddenly James understood why she had refused to take the blanket back. He just didn't understand why she had been willing to let it go. Some things survive because someone refuses to throw them away. Mr. Bauer said it without looking at James. The old baker was stacking firewood beside the rear entrance when James approached that afternoon. Anna was nowhere nearby. The church markers remained visible beyond the rooftops, and the names stitched into the wool had followed James through every patrol since morning. Marta Keller, James said. Bauer's hand slowed. What happened to her? The old man studied the American sergeant for a long moment. Why do you need to know? James looked at the folded bundle beneath his arm. Because Anna gave this to my sister. Bauer's expression hardened, then softened into something heavier. He sat on an overturned flour barrel. Marta was 9. James said nothing. She followed Anna everywhere. If Anna carried water, Marta carried the cup. If Anna swept the bakery, Marta swept beside her with a broom twice her height. A faint smile touched Bauer's face, then disappeared. Their mother made that covering from old wool before the winters became bad. Marta always complained it scratched her chin. James looked down at the uneven stitching. 1938. The year their mother finished it. Bauer rubbed his palms together. When food became scarce, the Keller family sold furniture. Then dishes. Then coats. Anna kept that one thing. James felt the meaning settle slowly. Not an extra possession. Not something found in an abandoned house. A piece of a family reduced year by year until memory became almost all that remained. How did Marta die? Bauer stared toward the church. One winter night, people were moved into a cellar during an air raid. Marta had fever. Anna wrapped her in that wool and held her until morning. His voice lowered. The girl survived the bombing. James waited. But not the sickness afterward. The sounds of the town seemed to recede. A hammer somewhere. An engine turning over. A distant command from an American checkpoint. James could suddenly picture Anna at 16, perhaps 17, sitting beside a younger sister while buildings shook overhead, holding the same fabric Emily had slept beneath. Anna kept it all these years. Yes. And yesterday she simply gave it away? Bauer looked directly at him. You keep saying simply. James had no response. That evening, he found Anna near the communal pump filling 2 metal buckets. He approached without his helmet. She noticed the bundle immediately. You spoke to Bauer. I did. Her jaw tightened. He talks too much. He told me about Marta. Anna lifted one bucket. James caught the handle before she could take the second. She looked at his hand. He released it. I'm sorry. For what? Marta. Anna's face remained unreadable. James unfolded the wool enough to expose the stitched initials. This should be with you. No, Anna, this was hers. Yes. It's the last thing you have. Her eyes rose sharply. For the first time, anger entered them. You think that is why I remember her? James fell silent. Anna stepped closer and pressed the fabric back toward his chest. Marta is not inside a blanket. Her voice trembled once. She is in every morning I wake up and no she did not. James felt his breath catch. Anna looked past him toward the American quarters where Emily was staying. When I saw your sister yesterday, she was shaking exactly the same way. James understood before she finished. Anna swallowed. I had something warm in my hands. A pause. This time, I could give it to someone soon enough. Then she lifted both buckets and walked away. James remained beside the pump, holding the wool against his uniform. For the first time since entering Germany, he wasn't thinking about who had won. He was thinking about a 9-year-old girl who hadn't survived long enough to know the war would end. Why did you give her the one thing you had left? James asked the question 2 days later. Anna was standing inside the damaged schoolhouse, arranging jars of medicine on a shelf the Americans had built from salvaged boards. Afternoon light entered through windows patched with canvas. Somewhere outside, children were laughing around a military truck. She didn't turn. You already know. I know what happened to Marta. That is not the same thing. James placed the folded wool on a desk. Anna finally faced him. He had carried it there without Emily knowing. The girl had grown attached to it, sleeping beneath it each night and dragging it around her shoulders each morning. James had begun to understand why. Some objects made people feel protected long after the people who first held them were gone. If it belonged to your sister, he said, why give it to mine? Anna's gaze rested on the dark stitching. For several seconds, neither moved. Then she pulled out a chair. Marta became sick before the worst winter. James remained standing. There was little coal, less medicine. My father traded his watch for antibiotics, but they came too late. Anna ran one finger along the edge of the desk. The night of the bombing, everyone went underground. Marta could barely walk, so I carried her. Her voice stayed level. That made it harder to hear. She kept asking whether morning had come. James pictured the markers beside the church. What did you tell her? That it would. Anna looked toward the covered window. I kept saying it because older sisters are supposed to know things. A faint sound came from outside. Emily laughing. Anna heard it too. When daylight finally came, Marta was still breathing. I thought that meant I had kept my promise. She paused. But sometimes morning arrives without saving anyone. James lowered his eyes. He had known loss in uniforms. Names written on reports. Empty bunks. Letters sent home. This was different. A child waiting for daylight. An older sister pretending certainty because there was nothing else left to give. Anna rose. When I saw Emily beside that truck, I did not see an American. James looked at her. I saw blue lips. Small hands. Someone waiting for an adult to notice. She touched the wool once. And I remembered having warmth in my arms when warmth was no longer enough. James swallowed. So you gave away Marta's last thing? Anna shook her head. No. Her answer came immediately. You still think the blanket is Marta. She pressed her palm against her chest. My sister is here when I remember her stealing apples from Bauer. She is here when I hear someone laugh too loudly in church. She is here every time winter comes. Anna withdrew her hand. That cloth cannot become more important than a living child. The words left James motionless. He had spent years learning to protect what belonged to his side. His men. His family. His flag. Anna had lost nearly everything. Yet somehow her grief had not taught her to measure compassion by nationality. Outside, Emily called his name. James picked up the blanket. At the doorway, he stopped. Anna. She looked up. I was wrong about you. Anna considered him for a moment. Then she returned to the medicine shelf. Then be right about the next person. James stepped outside. Emily came running toward him. Behind her stood several German children near the truck, watching American soldiers unload food. For once, James did not see two sides of a street. He saw people who were cold, and people who had something warm to give. Sergeant, we're out of coal. Corporal Harris delivered the news shortly after sunset. The temperature had dropped hard enough to frost the inside of the schoolhouse windows. Families crowded into classrooms converted into temporary shelters, using desks as tables and curtains as bedding. The small stove in the central hall had already consumed the last broken chairs they could spare. James looked toward the supply truck. How many blankets? Not enough. That answer would have ended the discussion 3 days earlier. Military stores were for military needs. Civilian shortages belonged to another office, another officer, another list. Then James saw Emily. She was sitting near the doorway with Marta's wool around her shoulders. Beside her stood a German boy wearing shoes without laces. James remembered Anna's words. Be right about the next person. Open the rear truck. Harris frowned. Those are company reserves. I know. If Captain Miller asks, tell him I ordered it. Within 20 minutes, American soldiers were carrying bedding into the schoolhouse. No speeches accompanied them. Private Collins complained while lifting crates, then quietly gave his spare gloves to an old man whose fingers had turned purple. A medic found additional fuel behind the aid station. Someone brought canned soup. Someone else discovered chocolate in a field ration and broke it into pieces small enough for 6 children. Kindness spread without announcing itself. Anna arrived carrying a pot from Bauer's Bakery. She stopped when she saw James unloading supplies. Their eyes met. Neither smiled. They didn't need to. Near midnight, wind struck the town with new force. A section of canvas tore from an upstairs window, sending icy air through the room where several children slept. James and Harris climbed onto desks to secure it. Below them, Anna moved the youngest children away from the draft. Emily followed her. Stay near the stove, James called. Emily ignored him. She crossed to a little German girl sitting against the wall. The child was perhaps 5, with 2 blonde braids and a coat missing 3 buttons. Her hands were tucked beneath her arms. Emily looked down at Marta's covering, then at the girl. James saw the decision before she made it. Emily. His sister turned. For 1 second, he almost told her no. The night was bitter. She needed it. It had been given to her. Then he remembered Anna standing beside the pump. Something warm in my hands. James lowered his voice. Go ahead. Emily removed the wool. She walked to the German child and draped it across both of their shoulders. The girl stared at her. Emily said something in English. The other child answered in German. Neither understood. Still, they moved closer together. Anna had stopped beside the stove. Her face changed when she saw the stitched corner resting between the 2 girls. James climbed down. She copied you, he said. Anna watched them. No, James glanced at her. She understood. Outside, the wind rattled damaged shutters. Inside, soldiers and civilians fed splintered wood into the stove while children slept wherever space allowed. No order had created this. No officer had planned it. It had begun with one young woman crossing a street because a child was shivering. James had spent years watching fear move from one person to another. He knew how quickly suspicion spread, how anger multiplied, how easily one cruel act could justify the next. That night, he learned something else could travel the same way. Emily lifted one side of the wool so the German girl had more. Across the room, Collins removed his scarf and handed it to another child. Harris pretended not to notice. Anna stood beside James in silence. For the first time, Marta's blanket was warming 2 children who did not share a language, a country, or a history, only the same cold. And somehow that was enough. Orders came through. We leave at first light. James found Anna behind the schoolhouse just before dusk. She was hanging washed bandages across a line stretched between 2 damaged trees. The storm had passed, leaving the town beneath a hard silver sky. Water dripped from broken gutters. Somewhere beyond the square, American engines were already being tested for departure. Anna secured another strip of cloth. How far? West. For how long? James hesitated. I don't know. Anna nodded as though uncertainty had become too familiar to deserve a reaction. James held Marta's blanket under one arm. Emily had insisted on carrying it everywhere since the night in the shelter. Now the wool bore new evidence of use. A smear of ash near one edge, a loose thread, a small patch where soup had dried. Strangely, James thought it looked more valuable than before. Not less. Emily wants to see you. Anna's hands paused. She is leaving too? Yes. He expected relief. Perhaps distance. Instead, Anna looked toward the building. She should wear something warmer on the road. James almost laughed. You're still worried about that? Someone should be. A small voice came from behind him. I am. Emily stepped around the corner. The gray wool was wrapped around her like a cape. Anna crouched slightly. You learned German yet? Emily shook her head. You learned English? No, Emily smiled. Then we're even. Anna smiled back. It was the first time James had seen her do it without sadness following immediately afterward. Emily reached beneath the blanket and produced a folded piece of paper. I made this. Anna opened it. A drawing. 3 figures stood beneath an enormous blue sky. One wore an American helmet. Another wore a dress. Between them stood a child wrapped in something gray. Above the figures, Emily had drawn a sun far too large for the page. Anna stared at it. That is you, Emily explained, pointing. That's James. And that's me. Anna touched the third figure. You made me taller. Emily shrugged. You looked tall when you gave me the blanket. James turned away for a moment. He had seen men receive medals with less dignity than Anna showed while holding a child's drawing. Emily then began removing the wool. Anna stopped her. No, but it's yours. It was. Emily looked confused. James stepped closer. Anna, are you certain? She ran her fingers across the embroidered initials. M. Keller, 1938. For years, those letters had belonged to grief. Now another child had slept beneath them. Another winter had touched the fabric. Another story had entered its threads. Anna folded the corner back down. May she keep it? James asked. Anna looked at Emily. Yes. Emily threw her arms around her. Anna froze. Only for a second. Then she held the child carefully. When Emily released her, James reached into his jacket and handed Anna a small photograph. It showed Emily standing beside an army truck several months earlier, grinning into the sun. Anna turned it over. James had written 6 words on the back. So you know she stayed warm. Anna read them twice. Her thumb covered the final word. She didn't cry. She simply pressed the photograph against her chest. The next morning, the American convoy rolled through the square. Emily leaned from the truck, wrapped in Marta's blanket, waving until the bakery disappeared behind the buildings. Anna remained beside the road long after the engines faded. In one hand, she held Emily's drawing. In the other, the photograph. For the first time since Marta died, Anna had given away something connected to her sister without feeling that she had lost her again. Some memories survived by being protected. Others survived by being passed forward. Do you think she'll remember me? Anna asked the question after the convoy was already gone. Mr. Bauer stood beside her near the empty square, sweeping mud from the bakery entrance. He followed her gaze toward the road where the American trucks had disappeared. Children remember strange things. Anna looked at Emily's photograph. On the back, James's handwriting remained dark and uneven. So you know she stayed warm. Anna kept it inside the pocket nearest her heart. Weeks passed. The American checkpoints moved farther away. Soldiers who had become familiar vanished with their units. Streets reopened. Broken windows gained new glass. Families returned to buildings that no longer looked like homes and began repairing them anyway. Anna returned to ordinary work. Bread, water, medicine, long lines, short meals. But something had shifted. American soldiers passing through the town occasionally stopped at Bauer's bakery. Some knew the story of the young German woman who had crossed the street. Most did not. Anna preferred it that way. She had never considered what she did heroic. Heroism belonged to statues and speeches. She had only seen someone freezing. Months later, a military postal truck stopped outside the bakery. The driver entered carrying an envelope. Anna Keller? She raised her hand. The return address was American. James Walker. Anna waited until evening before opening it. Inside was a letter and another photograph. Emily stood in front of a wooden house, smiling beneath spring sunlight. Marta's wool rested around her shoulders despite the warm weather. Anna laughed softly. Then she read. James wrote that Emily refused to store it in a trunk. She said blankets were supposed to be used. He wrote that she had begun asking questions about Germany. Not about armies. About children. Did they have school again? Was the bakery repaired? Did Anna have enough food? Then came the line that made Anna stop. Emily had asked James why people who could help each other ever became enemies. James admitted he had no answer simple enough for a 7-year-old. Perhaps, he wrote, adults had spent too much time creating complicated reasons for things children understood without explanation. Anna sat at the kitchen table for a long while. Beside her lay Marta's old photograph. 2 sisters before the war. Marta grinning. Anna pretending not to. She placed Emily's picture beside it. For years, Marta's memory had been tied to endings. The final winter. The final fever. The final morning. Now, unexpectedly, another child had attached something new to it. A beginning. Anna wrote back. Her English remained imperfect, so Bauer helped with several words. She told Emily the bakery had new windows. The school had reopened 2 rooms. The little girl who had shared the wool during the storm was named Liesel. And yes, she was warm. At the bottom, Anna added one sentence without Bauer's help. Keep using the blanket. Years began to pass. Letters crossed the Atlantic. Emily grew taller. James left the army. Anna rebuilt a life from pieces that once seemed too small to matter. Yet the gray wool remained in the Walker family. its edges frayed, its color faded. The initials became harder to read, but no one repaired over them. M. Keller, 1938. Because by then, those letters no longer belonged only to the child who had died. They belonged to the child who had been kept warm, and to the woman who had discovered that remembering someone did not always mean holding tightly to what they left behind. Sometimes memory endured because you allowed it to shelter someone else. Grandma, why do you keep an old blanket behind glass? Emily Walker looked across the room. More than 50 years had passed since the winter in Germany. James was gone now. So was Mr. Bauer. The ruined streets had been rebuilt long ago, and children who once slept inside damaged schoolhouses had grown old beneath peaceful roofs. Yet the wool remained. It rested inside a simple wooden case in Emily's home, faded almost silver with age. One corner was unevenly repaired. Near the edge, the embroidery could still be read if the light struck correctly. M. Keller, 1938. Emily's granddaughter pressed closer. Was it yours? Emily smiled. No, then whose was it? Emily opened the case carefully. Her hands were older now, but she still remembered the first time those fibers touched her face. It belonged to a little girl named Marta. Did you know her? No, the child frowned. Emily lifted the fabric. But I knew her sister. She told the story without making anyone a hero. She described a freezing German town, a frightened American child, a young woman named Anna Keller who had every reason to protect the little she still possessed, and the moment she chose otherwise. When Emily finished, her granddaughter touched the repaired corner. She gave this to you even though you were American? Emily nodded. That mattered to the adults. And to Anna? Emily thought of the young woman she remembered from across decades. No, I think being cold mattered more. Inside the case lay several letters. Anna's handwriting changed over the years. Her English improved. The pages became longer. She eventually married. She helped reopen the school. For decades, she and Emily exchanged Christmas cards. James wrote occasionally too. In his final letter to Anna, he admitted something he had never said during the occupation. He told her that before meeting her, he believed surviving war meant learning whom not to trust. Anna had taught him something harder. Peace required learning when to trust again. Years later, Emily finally returned to Germany. Anna was waiting outside Bauer's old bakery. Both women had gray hair. Neither recognized the other immediately. Then Emily opened her coat. The blanket was folded across her arms. Anna laughed. You still have that. Emily stepped forward. You told me to keep using it. They embraced where American trucks had once stood. No soldiers watched. No barriers separated the street. Only two women remembering the winter when they had first met. After Anna died, Emily stopped using the wool. Not because it had become too precious to touch, because its work was finished. She placed it behind glass beside Anna's letters and the childhood drawing of three figures beneath an enormous blue sky. Her granddaughter looked at the display. So it's a war blanket? Emily shook her head. No, she closed the case. It's what came after. Outside, snow had begun falling. Emily watched it settle quietly across the yard. Wars were remembered through dates, victories, uniforms, and names carved into stone. But history was also carried by smaller things. A piece of bread divided between strangers. A door opened. A coat shared. A blanket removed from one pair of shoulders and placed around another. Anna Keller never commanded soldiers. She never received a medal. She never asked anyone to remember what she had done. She simply saw a child standing in the cold and decided that nationality could wait. And perhaps that was why the story survived. Because long after people forgot which uniform stood on which side of that frozen street, one truth remained simple enough for a child to understand. War teaches people where the lines are. Compassion teaches them when to cross them.